Well, I guess that'll be transitioning over to the con area.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen his character more fully developed because he's so basically he's a character that actually has I don't like to call it theories because if you kind of look at the definition of theory, you know, it's actually something that's been experimented on over and over and over. So I'd like to call him a hypothesis.
Hypothesis.
Yeah. Well, anyway, naming aside, he actually believes in time travel, and finally when he gets the proof by seeing Kyle Reese all over again, because he was actually one of the cops that was going to arrest Reese, or actually did arrest Reese back in 1984 at the mall. But then, long story short, you know, Kyle escapes with Sarah. Fast forward from 84 to 2017, he is now played by J.K. Simmons, and you know, he's like, oh man, all of my ideas are being proven true. And you really don't see much development with him. Like, you kind of see him throughout the movie. I almost thought like he was getting closer to finding something. And I guess in a sense he did, because finally he talks to Sarah and says, you know, I know you have something to do, something big. You know, you don't have to get really complicated, or I know it's complicated. But after that, you know, he helps him escape, and that's it. And I felt like I feel like they could have taken a different direction with him. I actually was thinking that before you know, too late into the movie, I was thinking, man, maybe this is the guy that has something to do with the creation of time travel. See, I thought that would have been cool, but that didn't happen.
Of course, and I think, and that's true. I mean, you know, he didn't have that much. His character didn't get developed that much as you would want him to get developed. But another con is this is a very confusing film, to the point where when me and JB come out of the film, we're like, but this happened, but that happened. Why didn't this happen? And we're just trying to figure it out. We're trying to, like, it's a big giant puzzle that you had to, like, pay attention to what's happening, because if you just miss like a couple of scenes of dialogue, you're like, wait, that didn't make any sense at all. Like, what? Yeah. I mean, one good example is, if anybody knows anything about time travel, as soon as you go back in time, the time that you came from automatically gets altered. It becomes an altered time. And when the Terminator goes back in time, Arnold, the young Arnold, the time doesn't really change at all. I mean, the soldiers get there, he's going back in time, and as soon as he disappears, everything stays the same.
And I was wondering, like, well, how much of a timeline do you all have? You know, you're just kind of standing around, you know, kind of taking their time. Oh yeah, by the way, you got to take off your clothes, because if not, you're gonna get fried. I'm like, I felt like they're kind of taking a while to finally get this thing started.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that I just didn't. It really took me out, because I mean, even you look at what was it, X-Men, the cartoon, the animation back in the '90s, and you look at the Days of Future Past. I mean, as soon as Bishop goes back in time, the entire timeline changes. So as soon as the Terminator goes back in time, he changes the timeline. Shouldn't the timeline, change?
The present.
The present, yeah, exactly. Everything just alters.
That's assuming. But then, you got a whole bunch of different ideas about time travel where, if someone goes back in the past, they're actually creating an alternate timeline. So really, that's a tough one that I don't think a lot of people really quite know how it all works. But I definitely see your point of view of what you're saying. I think a huge mistake, and I mean no disrespect to the people that were involved in creating this story. I think it was a terrible decision to make John Connor the villain. I mean, if you kind of think about your audience for a second, you've got a movie series that started in 1984. It's now been 31 years after, and after 31 years of, hey, we got to protect this guy, we got to protect his mother. He's going to help people. He's going to save humanity. Now he's a boy. We got to protect him. Now he's a man. Got to protect him. He's in the fourth movie, which, by the way, I heard they wanted to make him a machine. Now you make him a machine. It's like all of that was for nothing. It really, I think it was just, I think, a bad decision. I speak as a fan. I don't know how many other fans out there would agree with me or not. but I think that the decision for this movie could have been taken in a different direction. I'm also really not happy with the third one. I think, or the fourth one. The fourth one I think was probably
after Terminator 2. I'm not happy.
Out of all of them, I think the fourth one was probably the better one. And I'm not insulting anybody's acting here. That's not the point. I'm just saying, as far as the story goes, I think it could have been handled differently. I understand as a fan, I'm kind of torn because I understand that the part 2 really did kind of finalize things, but there are ways to get around that and still make it make sense. But from what they did, it's kind of like everything that you know about the Terminator, we're just going to kind of forget it. Watch the movies if you want for full understanding, but now we're going to start afresh. Oh, and by the way, we're going to get rid of the guy that we fought so long and hard to protect. I think that was one of the mistakes that they made. Another thing, I think they really don't make Terminators to last very long, because according to this story, Arnold goes back to 1973, and now it's 2017, so that's about 40 some years.
Yeah, 40 plus years.
40 plus years, and they show his arm kind of like moving like this, and his knee buckling. He has to knock it back into place. And I remember from part 2 when John asked him, how long do you live or last, and Arnold said his power cell lasts about 120 years. And so I was telling 01 about this, and he was saying, well, that's the power cell, that's maybe not the body. But I really think they could have done away with that. Like, I think it would have been good enough if they're trying to make everything jive, as far as, like, we understand Arnold is in his I think 70s now.
Is he?
I think so. Basically, I think they're trying to do, like, we understand that he's older now, so we want to kind of make that fit with the character. But I mean, you've got all the CGI and all this other computer technology. I really don't think that was necessary. I think what they did was good enough, explaining that the tissue ages, which I thought was actually pretty good. They did try to tie up some loose ends here and there, like when Kyle goes back in time and gets himself to remember what he eventually would use to help him know who Genisys was. But like I said, I think that was another drawback for me in the film. I don't know, what else can you think of?
I think another thing that I just felt like it didn't, what I didn't like about was, other than John Connor becoming the bad guy, was not to diss the actors. I mean, hey, acting is something that a lot of people may say it's easy, but it's not. I mean, especially when you have like a bunch of cameras and a bunch of lights and people telling you how to do and what to do. But when it came to Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor, the actors who portrayed them, I felt that they were just acting. Like I didn't feel the, how can I put it? I didn't connect to them. In other words, like, for example, if you look at Terminator Part 1 and 2, and you look at Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor, and those films, it's like full mode, and you kind of were rooting for them, and you felt for them, and you wanted them to succeed. And this one, it was kind of, I felt like I was watching a superhero movie, a comic book movie. Like, there was no immediate danger. Even though they were in danger, I still felt like, they were okay. You didn't see any bruises or any bumps or any scrapes or scars or anything like that. And they're trying to, they're going against a T-1000, T-3000. They're going against cops and all that stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Surprisingly, nobody's bruised. Nobody's lagged it up. Nothing. I mean, especially that scene in the San Francisco bridge, the the Golden State Bridge, and the buses flipping all over the place. I mean, they would not survive. Especially Kyle Reese. He did not have any seatbelts at all. That guy would have died instantly. And somehow he survives without any scrapes, without any bumps, without anything. I'm just thinking to myself,
you broke a fall, man. That's his soldier training. I mean, that's self-explanatory.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Not to bash him at all. It's the director's responsibility to direct the actors what's happening in that scene, in that moment. But I felt like when it came down to the acting, when it came down to the heart of it, I already knew that they were gonna make it. Like I felt like there was no danger for them because like they're gonna make it. Like you just know they're gonna make it, and because throughout the entire film you never see them once get like injured bad to the point where they're like dying and you're like, oh snap, Kyle Reese might die again again, like for the second time, or Sarah Connor might not make it. No, I just feel like, man, it's like, you're facing up against these machines that have no souls, don't care about you or anybody else. They just want to kill you, and somehow you don't see any of that fear in their eyes. Because I remember it clearly in Terminator Part 1. As soon as the Terminator goes into the club, Arnold's he
one of my favorite scenes. I think that's probably the best scene in that movie.
He's walking and there's people dancing and he goes on to the slow motion, like this really slow type of like a dream sequence, and then out of nowhere you see like a laser pointing at Sarah Connor, and you see the shock and the fear on her face, and you're like, oh my, Sarah Connor, you gotta do something, and then bam, you see Kyle Reese comes out of nowhere, he shoots him down. To Arnold's character, the Terminator, and then you see him escape, and then Kyle Reese explains, no, you gotta stick with me, this and that, and you feel the tension. You're like, wow, this is like, this is good acting and good storytelling. And this one, it's more like Kyle. JB, my friend, was speaking about how John Connor, the T-3000, was phasing through Arnold's character, the T-800, right?
T-800, and I'm thinking like, wow, you had the whole movie to do that, and now you decide to do that? It's like you could have done that before.
Yes, I had the beef with the T-1000 because when you saw the T-1000 was played by Robert Patrick, in the Terminator Part 2, you see him run, you see him do a lot of things that, it really looked like a menacing weapon. Like you were like, oh man, once you saw him, you gotta run, because that guy will kill you. And this one, it's like he takes his time. The T-1000 takes his beautiful time to hunt down Kyle Reese, to hunt down Sarah Connor, to hunt down Arnold. I'm like, okay,
there's no pressure.
There's no pressure, exactly. And we're like, well, you're a T-1000. You're sent to kill, destroy, and murder Sarah Connor and John Connor, and Kyle Reese, and nothing.
He's just walking.
He's taking his time. He's pacing. The bullets even like knock him down. I'm thinking,
which I thought was totally confusing, because like in Part 2, like little bitty bullets, they really wouldn't knock him back that much. But in this one, apparently a little handgun, if you shoot him enough, it'll actually knock him down. I didn't get that.
And I didn't get it too. I was just like, that really kind of irked me, because he didn't look like the T-1000 in this film, Terminator Genisys, did not feel like a real menace, like a real danger.
He had the look.
He had the look.
He had the look, but just like you were saying, not the persona.
The persona of like, this is death incarnated, and you gotta escape this guy, and it didn't feel like that. It just felt like a really boring character. Really boring.
I think the problem was they were trying to maybe kind of elongate the whole action sequence as to where Sarah comes in. Which, by the way, I was kind of thinking when her van smashes through the mall and hits the T-1000, I was wondering, why didn't this guy just kind of liquefy? Like he just kind of stayed solid. Just little things like that. I would have liked for them to